Hey everybody, how you doing tonight? My name is Alex Shani, and I am the Industry Development Coordinator here at Manitoba Music, and I would like to welcome everybody to the first ever BPM Speaker Series. We're celebrating Black History Month, and we just really like to thank Factor for making the BPM Speaker Series possible. We want to thank Advance, Canada's Black Music Collective, and Black History Manitoba for supporting this series. You can find out more about Advanced at www.advancedmusic.org, and be sure to follow Black History Manitoba socials for their great Black History Month programming. The BPM program was launched last February, so we're just over a year old, to support Black music professionals here in Manitoba, and we offer regular sessions for participants to meet and network, join group discussions, and learn from one another. Learn from one another. So you can find out more about that by emailing bpm at Manitoba Music. And make sure to check out our BPM Spotify playlist featuring Black artists from Manitoba, curated this month by R&B artist Trish K. And we want to thank Box of Wolves for creating the BPM Speaker Series artwork that we're going to be using all throughout the series. Anyways, today we have a very, very, very special guest. We have Vivian Barclay, the General Manager of Warner Chappell Music Canada. She's experienced in radio, artist management, publicity, promotions. She's composed music for television and commercials. She's won awards for film and sound production and digital audio engineering. So very talented. She's sitting on multiple boards. The Music Publishers of Canada, SOCAN, Toronto Music Advisory Committee, Advance, founding member, and just a whole bunch of other things. So we're definitely going to be really excited, and we're happy today to be joined by Vivian. I also want to make sure that we begin by recognizing that Manitoba Music was founded on a Treaty 1 territory, which is the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. And I'd like to recognize a strong Inuit community here in Manitoba. Manitoba Music respects the treaty in which our organization resides, and we commit to moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in the spirit of collaboration and reconciliation. All right, now we're going to get to the main event. Vivian, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Good evening, everyone. Am I supposed to see myself? Well, there we go.
Now you can see yourself. Perfect. Well, it's an honor to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Usually I'm physically in Manitoba in the freezing ass cold. But
I mean, honestly, you're not missing anything. I'm sure you've been here when it's cold. The past few days have been special.
Usually I'm there like in February. And so it's usually very, very cold when I'm there. But you know what? I really like it. I've been to that, like, you know, when they do the restaurant on the river.
On ice?
Like,
yeah.
I've done all of that. Like, I mean, I'm not a winter person at all, but you know, I try to take it in strides. Last time I was there, I landed and I had forgotten my coat in the Toronto airport. And you do not land in Winnipeg without a coat. It's very bizarre. So anyway, I had to literally drive straight to MEC and buy a brand new winter coat.
Oh yeah. You know what though? What the good news is the coat that you probably would have bought at MEC is like Winnipeg certified level. You know what I mean? Like
I still have it.
There you go. If you have a coat that can handle you in Winnipeg winter, it's a good winter coat across the board. You shouldn't be cold anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy to have you, and this is the first one of the BPM Speaker Series. So we just wanted to sit down and kind of talk to you, pick your brain, ask your opinions on things, and just get to it. So first question that I did have for you was, you're a founding member of Advance and one of the drivers of that organization. Is the disparity between the number of Black artists on the charts and how many Black people hold management positions in the music industry, it's a big deal. Can you talk to me about that disparity and where it comes from and why it's an issue?
Which one, the executives or the charts?
I'm talking about we have so many people on the charts, and then the amount of executives that we have is significantly less. It almost feels disproportionate, with the amount of Black success on the music charts. How do we change that?
Well, I mean, it depends on what chart you're looking on, because
Okay.
there are no black, there are almost nothing black on the radio charts, like almost zero. In fact, most black music doesn't show up in the top 100 if you were to look at it over the course of a year, because we
Mhm.
don't have any black stations really. Or, I mean, now granted that, black music is pop music. And so whether you are talking about Drake Weekend, Bieber, you know, it doesn't matter what the music is. If the music is rooted in black music, I mean, I personally claim it and I call it black music. It
Okay.
may not be a black person, but there's not a lot of it, funny enough, on the radio charts. And what is there on the radio charts is usually not Canadian, because it's usually pretty much pop and North American pop. And if it is there and it's Canadian, it's, super mainstream. But
Mhm.
there is not a lot of Canadian or black music on radio charts, period, in this country. In On streaming charts, that's a different thing. On
Mhm.
streaming charts, yes, the black music has, found its place, is it, and it's in streaming. So unfortunate, because we make more money on radio. Like, if I look from my world, from a songwriter perspective,
Mhm.
they make more money from radio plays than they do from the streaming. So it's a bit annoying, but
Yeah.
I would say black music has found its place in streaming. Um, but I also think that's always been the case, where it's black music is pop music. It's just varying versions of it.
Mhm.
And, I don't, some people are like, oh, hip hop is having its time. I mean, hip hop's been having its time. I don't think it's new or not new. Whether or not, you know, people think that uh, someone working in an industry situation should
Mhm.
correlate directly. I, I don't know. I mean, obviously, the point of advance is that we do think that people of color and black people specifically are underrepresented
Mhm.
in the ranks of the business side. There's no black agent, let's say, at any of the major agencies. Um, the labels are actually doing okay from a percentage wise. Um, the majors anyway are doing
Mhm.
pretty okay from a percentage wise. Um, but if you were to look at something like the live music business, there are no black agents, and arguably black music does occur in this country live, right? So to
Okay.
me, that's a big disparity. To me, that you can have a live music business that has black music, whether it's local or international, and there are no black agents at all. I mean, hopefully that will change. Um, and there's not a lot of them in the live business unless they're creating it themselves, like being promoters or putting on shows themselves or whatever the case may be. But in the traditional industry, no. Do I think it's a direct correlation? No, I don't.
Okay.
Just like um, if I were to look at it from another genre's perspective, like country music or something, like
Okay.
there's a lot of country music in this country, like a lot of it,
Mhm.
right? Multiple country stations in a specific market, for
For sure.
instance, a lot of country shows up nowhere on the streaming charts. Like, it does not exist at all, like at all. I would dare you to find one country song on the streaming chart. It just doesn't exist. It over indexes on radio.
Mhm.
Similarly, if you were to look in, say, agents, labels, et cetera,
Yeah.
those genres might say to you, yo, we're not represented at all. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm sure there are people there who are country experts, maybe. But,
Mhm.
the reality of the situation is no, it probably isn't. Now, and I find by we, I mean the collective we, whatever is our thing, we seem to get hyper focused on that thing. And then we act like we're literally the only thing, and that's the only thing. So if you are, whatever your thing is, if you're a woman, if you're LGBTQ, if you're indigenous, if you're black, if you're Jamaican, if you're, like, you know what I mean? Like, everybody's hard done by in their lane, right? That's just
Okay.
how everybody thinks about things. They don't think about things from another perspective. And so,
Mhm.
like, when we have these discussions and it's, people are like, oh, black music is not radio, blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, but if I was in rock and country, I would say the same thing. Radio is supposedly going away, And the thing that's happening now, you know, streaming, literally rock and country are non-existent, like non-existent. So it's like, I don't know, it's like a flip of a coin. Does it take away the fact that, considering how valuable and how much value Black music brings into the music business, should there be more executives and more people working in the business? Of course there should. And certainly you should never have an entire sector of the business that doesn't have any Black representation, like the live music business. And so what we do is we literally just go, what is the issue? How do we get more people in the door? You know, what gap is there in training? What gap is there in skill set? One of the things that we've always talked about is the fact that, you know, if you are, say, a Black music manager or you're working with Black artists, a lot of times you're not coming to our business from a traditional route. You maybe didn't go to like a tertiary institution specifically to get a music diploma or something. A lot of times, some of the biggest music managers have come up alongside these artists. Maybe it was a friend, maybe it was, you know, somebody who was interested in the business, and they're coming up through the ranks with those artists. And then they get to a place where maybe they want to go and do something more traditional in the music business, like work at a label or working live or as a booking agent or whatever the case may be, but they don't have this so-called experience of working at a label or working somewhere else. And then so that runway doesn't exist. Whereas, like, if I were to look at my former intern pool, people that came to me from Trebas and Durham and Harris Institute and Metalworks and all these kind of music specific schools in Toronto, you know, I've taught at all those schools, and I used to teach at Trebas, used to teach at Metalworks, used to teach at Ryerson. And yeah, I'm going to say 90% of my class were white kids whose focus was definitely not, you know, Black music or anything like that. I would have a lot of people that were interested in hip hop, but they were also not necessarily Black. And so I used to always take my interns from people I was teaching because I knew them. I had taught them for 14 weeks. I knew if they had sense. I knew what they were like, blah, blah, blah. And so it's like so as at Advance and even personally, you look at that gap and you go, what's missing and how do we fill the gap? And that's kind of the mindset that we've come to this, which is that, yes, we know there's an issue. I don't think it directly correlates to anything specifically where it comes to the music. I think that the fact that Black music is as valued means that the Black voice should be there, because there is nothing more annoying than watching people not of the culture, right? Because this is not even like Black the race we're talking now. We're talking about like a culture. So you're not of the culture, but you're going to tell us like how we're going to market this and how we're going to market hip hop, how we're going to market reggae, how we're going to market whatever it is, right? And you know, oftentimes we see these things historically, whether it's an ad or branding or something, and you go, Lord, there was no woman in the room. Clearly, there was no Indigenous, like whatever the issue is, right? You're like, clearly no woman was in the room. Clearly no Black person was in the room. No person of color, no Asian, no whatever it is. Like every year in some form, some crazy crap comes out, and you're like, what the hell? Like the monkey on the H&M shirt. It's like, wow. Did you ask someone? Did you bring someone in? You know, it's like, so, you know, clearly businesses need to understand that it's good business. It's not even just like, oh, is it the right thing to do? It's good business to have a diverse workplace and to have people that can speak of that thing. And then also when you think about it, from a music business perspective, we have so many Black artists who are some of our top artists in the world, not just in a specific genre, like in the world, in all genres, Black music is right at the top. So imagine if you are a Black artist and say you come to Canada to do like a press run, or you're doing shows or whatever, and the person that picks you up for promo is white, and your marketing manager is white, and your radio promo person is white, and your publicity person is white, and you're like, what the hell? And that was a thing. That was literally like a thing that would happen in Canada, where you would, and there's nothing to take away from those people. Those people are very good at what they do, and there's nothing wrong with what they do, and there's nothing wrong with that. And some of them may even be hip hop heads, like, you know what I mean? They may actually be of the culture, which is perfectly fine, and you can be that and be any race. But I think there is something to be said about seeing yourself and having a comfort level with stuff, and that not being available for certain artists. And so we're trying to change it. Was, you know, we are doing, you know, 1 year in, or to be honest, time is now warped because of this pandemic. But I keep saying last year to things, and I realize it's like 2 years ago now. It's not last year anymore. So wherever year we're in right now, which I think is we passed the 1 year mark, but whatever year we're in, we're making progress. And I just hope that people, because I think this is when people start to get tired of stuff, and, you know, maybe they were excited to say, oh, we're on board, we're doing the public thing, you know, the performative thing. And then I think people and companies get tired of it, and because it takes work, it takes actual work to do this work. And so I hope they don't get tired. I hope they don't go, oh, we hired the one Black person, or we had one Black person come and do this, or we had one woman show up to do this, and or an Indigenous person or an Indigenous artist, and that's it. Like, you know what I mean? Because it does take concrete, like, focused work over periods of time to actually get people from, oh, you came into the company as a starting position as a coordinator, to get them to like a VP level. It's going to take multiple years of focus hiring, focus internships, focus mentorship, focus everything. Like, because there could be people who are working in banking, let's say, and they are like, okay, I don't want to be a banker anymore, but maybe they're a data analyst, and they could be a data analyst at a label or somewhere else, right? And they want to make a lateral move, and it's like, well, is there some, you know, is there some way for them to do that? And I think we are looking for all of those opportunities, not just for the obvious places that people think of putting Black people. Because I think that happens too. It's like, oh, okay, you're going to be in A&R, you're going to be in here, which I think is also great. But I also think that we should be thinking about people in some of these other places, like tech and, you know, IT and, you know, operations and legal and finance and all of these other places that exist in the world. Because frankly, it should actually be easier to find those people, because they probably went to a more traditional background of schooling, and then they're making a lateral move.
Yeah, I've never actually really thought about that, all the different ins and outs and places that we could find more Black people in the industry. It's kind of wild when you put it that way.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, it's funny. Like, you know, I come from a culture, Jamaica, where things are very much divided historically along cultural lines. So, like, all the haberdasheries here are owned by Syrian, Middle Eastern type people. All the bakeries, and when I say all, I'm being a little facetious, but like 90%, all the bakeries are, you know, Chinese Jamaican. All the inbound stores are there. So it's like there's these things where it's like these cliche things in life where it's like, oh, if you're this, you do this. And I just think that, like, people should be allowed to have their moment to live their fullest life. And if you want to be in music and you have no interest in being marketing or whatever, and you want to be the accountant, you know what I mean? But one thing I will say is that I find that as a woman, as a person of color, it's very easy to be brought into this business in these like coordinator places, and then you never move from that spot. And I think that's the part that's super discouraging. And then we never get to where I am. And I always say to people, if you want another me, you've got to do something different. I can't be the only person. And I am. I legitimately am the only person at my level at one of like the major type companies who is Black, one, or even of color, to be honest. And then a woman, there are not a lot of us. Like Warner Music on the label side now has a female president as well. So Warner, we're like kicking ass right now. just for that one little thing, it's like, oh God. But you know, but then it becomes stupid because, you know, you get to Black History Month and then you get the call for everything, right?
Yeah, I can see that.
So it's like, it's at some point you're like, okay, like, and you know, I I pawn a lot of these kind of things off to say, like, look, there are other people you can start to call. Like, and the beauty of that is in developing things like Advance and having people come and have experience being on boards, being on committees, doing things like advocacy work, public speaking, whatever. What we're doing, even just having them involved in the organization, is allowing them to build those skills so that when there's a call for, we need a board member, we need a this, we now have people who have been functioning as board members, have been functioning where maybe they weren't before because they weren't high up enough in their organization to be put on a board. Right. And so those kind of opportunities, like, Manitoba Music, whatever it is, like, I always urge organizations that may not be traditional, business organizations. If you have a board, if you have look to some different people to be on your boards, or find committees to put people on so they get that experience, because until they get that experience somewhere, they can't get to the next place.
Yeah. No, I can definitely appreciate that. You blew my mind when you brought up, like, Black History Month comes along, and obviously I'm super excited to be talking to you, but it doesn't even occur there because you're thinking it's such a get for us. It's such a get to get someone.
Well, you're the only one I said yes to, because I put up a post a while back and I said, don't call me for Black History Month if you're not paying us, because I also don't think, I strongly believe Black people, or to be honest, anything, International Women's Day, Pride Month, you name what, Indigenous Day, it doesn't matter what the hell it is. Don't be calling those people from those communities, asking them to do the heavy lifting, and then not be willing to pay them. Like, 100%. That doesn't make sense. And it doesn't matter actually what the amount is. Maybe for other people, it may matter what the amount is, but for me, it's more of the principle of the situation. Like, don't call me and ask me to do these things and be like, oh, I literally had a call. It's for Women's Day. But it's clear the point of it was that they wanted me because I was a racialized woman, because they don't usually get that in this particular forum. And they were like, can you come do this panel? And then they sent me a deck that asked me to pay $5,000 to sit on the panel. I'm like,
what?
That's happening.
What?
Yeah. I'm like, no, that's not happening. It's like, but, to get past, we have an issue. There are a lot of people, coming into the business independently, working on their own, doing things. So many people doing the work. I'm not the only Black woman doing work in this space. There's tons of us, and there are tons of women who are super capable and doing great things. And, but maybe they don't have this title that people think is some dramatic thing, like it's not a thing, or they don't work in a specific type place. But there are lots of women who are way more capable and way smarter than me in lots of parts of this business. And so I always try to keep that list in the back of my head. So when people call me, I go, like, maybe you should go call Erin. Maybe you should call, Carrie at Sony, call Erin at TikTok, call Jamelia, call like whoever it is, right? That call these people. I work with them at Advance, but I work with them in the business, and they're all very amazing women, and they're people you can call. Like, you know what I mean? They're awesome. People you can call. But also, it's more really to say, like, to highlight the fact that we got to move off. We have to find a way to move people through the system, like, so that they can develop as executives, whatever level it is, and also, get the things that go along with that.
Yeah. Wow.
Including the headache, the positives and the negatives.
But that's the thing. It's even back to your point, when there's so few in that position, then everything falls to you, even if it's to the point to, like, brushing through the emails that you're not even interested to get to. It's funny if all of them are coming to you. Your inbox this month must be just too big.
No, it's fine. I mean, I got a couple of requests, but I think people have learned now. And what I will say is, it's pleasantly not crowded, because I think over the last year and a half, 2 years, we've done a lot of work to say, yes, okay, fine. These people may not have the particular title you think you need, but doesn't mean that they are not doing the same exact thing and can't speak on the exact same issues. So I am pleasantly surprised when I am not the only person that gets the phone call for these kind of things, because I shouldn't be. You know what I mean? Like, I may be technically the only one in my position technically, but there's lots of capable women and lots of capable people and lots of people in this business that can be called. So I'm very happy to see that that's happening.
All right, I got another question for you, and it's actually, you were talking about, as being a Black woman, and I thought it was really interesting to find if you could say your lived experience and your specific experience and perspectives as a Black woman have, you can say that you, like, what are ways that those have specifically helped you in your career? I know that seeing things from a different point of view, you talk about situations where there's we can imagine there's a room full of white men making decisions, and they're putting up stuff that you're just like, no, 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 you can't do that. Clearly you didn't ask person A or Y or B, you just all went with the same. So what are some ways that your specific perspective and your experience you found have really helped you out in your career?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know if it's helpful, because when you're in that position where you're the only person sometimes in the room in that situation, you're the one that has to be, you have two choices. You can either completely ignore the shit and just let it go, or you can be the person that speaks up. The problem is, I'm the person that speaks up. So what happens is that I think you then become a target, you know what I mean? And it gets exhausting to be the person that always has to speak up. So I'm really happy when other people are being let in the room, for lack of a better word to put it. That we have more people getting on boards, that we have more people getting in these committees, in these rooms where decisions are being made, that we have younger people in there, that we have races and people that are diverse in gender, and just all of those different issues, like, because none of us can talk and be the lived experience of another person. So, I can pipe up and say, if they did something whack on, like, say, an Indigenous issue, I can say something about it, but I don't know that even I am fully able to articulate just how ridiculous it is, other than to point it out. But when you're the person that's always pointing it out, it sometimes gets exhausting. So, I mean, I think there have been lots of benefits to me being a Black woman, insofar as I tick a lot of boxes for people. And so, you always are, when you're a person of color woman, you are always in the room, because I was talking today, we had a DEI conversation at work today, and the woman that was facilitating our conversation was Southeast Asian, I think. And she said, same, I'm always on these hiring committees because they're required to have one person of color and a woman. So they always get her, and then she ticks off two boxes, and it's the same. And for years, people would always say that to me. They'd be like, oh, aren't you annoyed that you're like this token person? And I was like, yeah, I fully understand that I'm the token person in the room sometimes, but I don't mind, because it means that I'm still a part of the conversation. And if I wasn't the person picked in those situations, the conversation would never have even reached us in the first place, because sometimes you're only in the room for that reason. And I can tell you, by being like very deep in some of these conversations, I can tell they were literally just going to go down the path. And until I said blah, they didn't even consider it. They didn't even consider that it was like an issue. And I'm like, what? Like, how do you not see that this is a problem? And so for that, I'm grateful. You know what I mean? For that, I'm grateful that at least I'm part of the conversation. And, I mean, I think it has been helpful for me, because personally, like in the business, I think it has been helpful to be a Black woman, because it's, put me in certain spaces for exactly that reason. It's good and it's bad. Like, you know what I mean? It's good and it's bad. And the advantage is that, it allows me to be in certain spaces because they need me to be in certain spaces. Now what I'm hoping will happen is that they understand this isn't just like a token thing that they're supposed to do, that they understand that we're not there to just be tokens and keep quiet and kind of just like be happy you're in the room. Because I think people have done that to women for years. They've been like, oh, just be happy you're here. It's like, no, we're not just happy to be here. Like, so, I'm hoping we've moved on from that point.
For sure. It was funny when you're saying that, my head was thinking, how many times after a meeting has somebody come up to you and been like, thank you? Like, we would have done something.
No, they don't. They don't. They don't. They don't. They don't. They
Really?
don't. No, I mean, I'm not saying that it never do. There's definitely times where we had these, and I have to say, I am more and more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's been good lately because I've been
Yeah.
in certain rooms lately where when I've said something, there's less face cringing and more like, yeah, what Viv said. Um, so things are changing. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Even if it's being forced on them, things are changing a little bit in certain spaces, whereby
Yeah.
before they would just be like, yeah, nice little girl over here. But,
Wow.
you don't, this is how we do it, or in Canada, or there's this other thing that happens a lot, is where it's like, this so and so is peak Canadian and super representative of Canada, and I'm like, we've really got to stop having this conversation where we classify white rock band, insert any white rock band in Canada here, as Canadiana, like peak Canadiana, and they super represent Canada. And I'm like, and how is that different from Drake?
Yeah.
Like, to me, if you go out into the world, Rush is as much Canadian as Drake is.
Yeah.
So to stand there and say that the reason why we're picking this thing over this thing is because this is peak Canadian and the indigenous artist isn't, or the black artist isn't, is wild to me, because it's like, it's so wild
It
that
is wild.
they still, because they don't know it, they don't know that artist. And I'm like, because you don't know that artist doesn't mean that everybody else in the world doesn't know that artist.
Yeah. Yes. That
You know
shared
what I'm saying?
experience. Yeah.
You
Well,
know what I
one
mean?
thing with advanced, one thing that I've been really excited of, just with Andrew doing BPM and following some stuff more and getting even to do this and meeting uh, so many people. There's something real special about having a conversation with someone who has a similar lived experience and looks like they look like you. You know what I mean? There's things that you just can vibe on real quick. You don't even have to talk about it overtly. And then in those moments, I realize, I'm like, wow, is this what white people are feeling like every day in certain situations that I
Well,
wasn't even
but
aware of?
that's because they don't even. It's like what somebody was saying when they were talking about white privilege. White privilege isn't this concept that you have gotten more, because there's a lot of white people who were like, I'm hard done by, I'm poor, I'm this, I did, and it's like, that's not what this is about. It's the fact that your lived experience is the norm.
Yes.
The norm. Like,
Yes.
your experience, the way your culture functions, is considered the norm, and
Yeah.
everything else is another. And so even me, like, I don't use the word minority to refer to non-white people in Ontario, in the city of Toronto, anymore, because we're no longer the minority. And I
Yeah.
really have it's annoying to me that we continue to refer to non-white people in the city of Toronto as minorities. We're not. Minority to who? Minority to
Mhm.
who? Who are we minority to? Because now, if you were just saying before we were a minority in numbers,
Yeah.
we're no longer minority in numbers. So what is it that we're the minority about? What is it that you're calling us a minority for? So I don't even kowtow to that kind of stuff. I don't even ascribe to that crap anymore in that kind of language. I'm like, no, because your lived experience is the norm.
Yeah.
And so therefore, everyone else, and it's so funny, you only really get that when you spend time outside of a homogenous place. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
if you don't spend time out of a homogenous. So first of all, I was brought up with a white woman. Like, my mom is white.
Mhm.
I read black to the outside world and therefore identify as black. And my mom taught me that super early. My mom raised me in Jamaica and never went back to Canada. Because one, her biggest issue was how we treated indigenous people. She hated it. She was like, I can't function with these people. And two, she was
Nice.
like, you're black, I'm not black. I need to grow you up around some black people, because
Wow.
I don't know what to like. It's not like, what, I can't tell you how to be black, and you're going to walk into the world and you are seen as a black person. It doesn't matter. Like, some people, like when I'm in America, they're so hyper to race that they know something is in here. They just don't know what, but they're so hyper to it. So I used to get like Indian, and I used to get all these weird mixes. People start talking to me in Spanish languages. And I mean, right now I'm actually dark as I could be right now, because I'm actually home in Jamaica. But yeah, normally like in dead of winter, I'm a little lighter. So maybe you might say, oh, she might have something in there or whatever. But I read as a Black woman. And, you know, that's how I have to live my life and my experience. I can't get away. Just because I tell you I'm half white doesn't all of a sudden miraculously make me, you know, like get a different type of thing. Some people would argue with that and say it does. But if you don't know that and you just see me walking in the roads, you're not going to know that that's my experience. My lived experience has been as a Black woman. You know what I mean? Like I literally I used to work for Sandals. I used to do entertainment for Sandals, sing, dance, do audio, all this kind of stuff. And one time we were doing a fam trip, which is like when the travel agents come down. And she actually was Canadian, actually. And she said she had been spending time with us, the staff. And so she was like, she felt comfortable, I guess. We took her off the property and whatever. It was a bunch of them. And she looked at me on no word of a lie. She said, the middle of your hands and the bottom of your feet, it's like normal people. Did the color wear off from use? I was like, I had to look up my boss, who was white Jamaican, Basil Cahusac de Call, like full French name. The guy's fully French, but Jamaican as they come. I just had to look at him and go, this one's for you. Because if I have to answer this bitch, I'll kill her. Like, ma'am. No, she literally said that. She said, did the color wear off from use? Because the middle of your hands and the bottom of your feet are like normal people, aka white.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, okay, we're done. We're done.
You know, it's wild because I remember getting that question when I was in like grade 3 or something like that.
Really? That's early. Wow. That's
yeah,
crazy.
it was. Well, the thing is, I went to here in Winnipeg. I grew up. The area of the city I grew up, like there just wasn't a lot of Black people in Winnipeg when I was growing up in school. I was the only Black kid.
Is there
it's actually gotten a lot better. It's actually gotten substantially better. A lot of immigrants have been coming in, and it's been really good for the community and just growing it up real fast and strong. So I'm loving that. But growing up I went to elementary school. I was the only Black kid pretty much until I was in grade 4, and then we had like 2 or 3, and then in high school we got maybe we had a table's worth. But it was funny because you hear these comments, and up until a lot later, I didn't realize how upsetting or frustrating some of those comments were. You know what I mean? But it's not until you're able to talk comfortably with other people that, you know, feel, look, understand like you, where it's like, yo, that really pissed me off.
It was culture shock when I moved back to North America, because the reality is, like, in Jamaica, we have white people, Chinese people, Indian people. We have all sorts of, I mean, our motto is literally out of many, one people. I don't think there's one pure anybody here in this country at all, right? We just mix up or down here. But the majority of people are not white. That's the reality here. So you grow up in that place. So when I moved back to North America to go to college and stuff, I was in like culture shock. I was like, this is some crazy shit. Because you know it exists in theory. You understand it exists in theory. But when you have to confront it in a very different way, it's kind of wild. You know what I mean? We always dealt with it because there's tourists around all the time. So they bring their crap here and they bring all that stuff with them. So you always have it around. So it's not like we were totally ignorant to it, but like it really is wild. So yeah, I can't even imagine what it must be like to be the one Black person in a school for like a really long time. And in fact, I know what it's like. I've met some of these people where I'm like I went to college with one girl and she was the same exact mix as me, just the reverse. Her dad was Greek, her mom was Black.
Yeah.
And she didn't understand she was Black. Like she just didn't understand. And we were like, someone is going to call you the N-word one day, EO. And I don't understand. You don't have coping skills. You literally don't have coping skills for this, because she wasn't raised Black. And then I realized later in life what a gift it was that my mother did give me to raise me in Jamaica, because she could have taken me back to Canada and raised me in Kitchener, Ontario, around a lot of white people. And I would be so different. Like I would be so different. And I was like, I always think about that. It's like wild to me.
It's interesting. I mean, one of the things that was great for us, we had a lot of relatives You know what I mean? So weekends we got to spend a lot of time with the cousins and everything like that. So that helped out. But and you know what? And it did. I met a lot of really good friends growing
So
up.
so musically, like let's bring us back to music a little bit.
Yeah,
So musically, like did you experience Black music then just as part of your familial culture, or like what was Black music like growing up in Winnipeg?
it
Like
was.
were you
Yeah,
exposed? Because like right now we're struggling. Just in Toronto, we're struggling. We don't have Black radio station. We just lost Flow.
wow.
Well, Flow become G bought Flow's branding, but Flow being on the commercial airways, because G is not a complete commercial station, is non-existent. So to go back to your original question about
Yeah.
music on the airways and in spaces, to have one of the number one music genres in the world.
Oh, what happened? Come on.
Oh, I don't know. I'm
Oh
back.
no.
Are you back?
Okay,
There we go.
I'm back. I
Yeah,
scared me for a second.
yeah. So to have us not represented on radio, I mean, it is the thing that everybody wants to argue about, right? And
Mhm.
so, what was that like in Winnipeg? Like, where did you experience Black music? Was it on radio anywhere?
You know what? It radio wasn't really the move. When by the time I got into high school, maybe junior high, you get on the bus and you go down to the mall and you have that one record shop where somebody would actually straighten you out. We had for us at Portage Place downtown, we had Adario. I was actually talking about him earlier, and Adario was great. He was working, I think it was HMV at the time, and he always had the stuff in the back ready. He's special at ordering stuff, and he would always break us off like, "You need to listen to this. You need to listen to this." You listen to a lot of university radio
So what do
stations.
you think is the influence? Because the last couple times I've been to Winnipeg, there have
Yeah,
been amazing Black music artists coming out of Winnipeg.
yeah,
Some really cool stuff, some really not, dead center stuff. And obviously now there's the internet, there's streaming, there's like, there's lots of places for people to be influenced by. But
yeah. How
and
does
so
that happen?
yeah, it's interesting to me because like I come and I like see stuff and I'm like, and that's the other thing. It's like we're in Toronto and we're in our little bubble. I think everybody in Canada is in their little bubble because of just geography, right?
Yeah,
It's geography. It's not a thing where it's like, oh, we don't care about Winnipeg. It's just geography. Like how many people get to go to Winnipeg?
yeah.
I've
Well,
literally been lucky to be able to come a couple times. You know what I mean? And being
yeah,
able to spend some time there. And now I represent Birthday Cake, which is a label and
yeah,
publisher out of Winnipeg, and I'm so excited about that because I'm not on the ground in Winnipeg all the time, and so they can bring me stuff that I wouldn't necessarily like, get to see or hear, and when
mhm.
I go there, I'm always very excited by what I see and hear. And so, what's that like to be an artist in Winnipeg? I'm always asking, or any of those kind of places. I'm always asking that question because the one frustration I do hear from artists all the time is they feel like they don't know how to get out. Like the number one question is, how do I get out of here? Even just to the rest of Canada, forget the rest of the world.
Yeah,
Like, you know what
yeah.
I mean? And Winnipeg, Manitoba specifically has such an amazing tradition of songwriting. Some of the best songwriters in the world are from, Manitoba and
Oh,
Saskatchewan and all those kind of places. So, how do we get like, where's the next Black artist, coming from one of those places potentially? They may very well be there. We just don't know they're there.
I think a lot of it, just my own opinion is we have those cold winters that we're telling you about, where you get to sit inside and you gotta
Oh, I
really.
100% agree. Joni Mitchell's of the world, the Neil Youngs of the world were literally born because you have minus 50-degree weather and they have nothing
There
else
you
to do but
go.
write songs all day.
And the other half of it too is just that we're because we're, like you said, a bubble. We're in the trade winds. We're like right in the middle of. We get a little bit of everything. People pass through us to get to the other side of Canada. People want to visit way up north. They pass through us there. Like it's just the way it's set up. We're right in the middle of North America, and we have all these influences that just kind of blow through us. And I think whatever kind of sits with you properly is just what it is, and you hold on to it. And because we all have so many different vibes that we catch on to, and then we're kind of, mixing them around with each other, you just get really unique kind of flavors, that's just my own personal take on it. But because we're so far removed we're 8 hours from anywhere. We're
Yeah.
literally 8 hours from anywhere. So
Oh no,
you
I
know?
try to explain to people what it's like being in that part of the country. And like even in Saskatchewan, like you could just drive for like a really long time
It's
to
just
see
flat. It's just
nothing. It's
nothing.
it's wild. It's so wild. So
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, yeah, I'm glad that Manitoba music is doing the work, and there's people doing the work around Black music and Black people in the industry, and trying to make sure that even on a local level,
Mhm.
that's happening. But because I know, like even at Advance, when we started doing this process and this project and trying to figure out who's where who are we missing, who do we have, who do we not have, we quickly found out like what we didn't know, and
Yeah.
who was around, and how many people were actually there and being able to bring into our network. And and so we spent a lot of time, and we still are going to spend a lot of time, and Kez is probably going to spend a lot of time trying to figure that out. Like, how do we make sure this isn't a Toronto centric thing or an Ontario centric thing? Like, how do we make sure that people in Winnipeg have the same opportunities to come and intern? Like, I would really love if somebody, I'm watching, I know everybody don't all send me your resumes, but I would love if somebody was saying like, hey, you know what, I'll come to Toronto for 3 months to do an internship. Because but I recognize, and this is another thing, like sometimes historically, Black people working in a business haven't been able to work for free, like
Yeah.
to do an internship, just to have the luxury of being able to do an internship that's free. We imagine we pay our interns now, but like to be able to do that, to take off time to work for free, is
Yeah.
privilege, right? And therefore you now have a leg up again. And so you even that out by paying your interns to make sure that people have the opportunity to do that. So if there's anybody listening that's like a business person or whatever the case may be, pay your interns, because maybe that Black person, Indigenous person, whoever, that woman, she's a single mom, whatever it is, or whatever, she or he can't, they just can't afford to take 3 months with no pay to
Yeah.
come and do this, but they probably have skill sets that they could be giving to you. So, hopefully we'll figure out how to unite us, even if it's under these particular banners,
Yeah.
um, and figure out how to make the industry more equitable. And
Yes.
I have been, as I said, pleasantly surprised in the last year to be in certain spaces and to have people say, for me not to have to be the person always arguing something, to have, like today we had a DEI conversation. I was pretty talkative in that part of it. We had a breakout room, and I said, I nominated the white guy. I was like, you can be the spokesperson here, because why do I once again, or this other lady over here, need to be the spokesperson to try and explain our point? And it was interesting because we weren't the only group that did that. There were groups that had people of color in all of the groups. And it was nice to see the white people being the person or the man talking about women issues or whatever, to articulate what they heard being said to them from those
Nice.
people. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're a man, what did you hear those women say? You are
Right.
straight, what did you hear those queer people say? You
Yeah.
are white, what did you hear those Black people or Indian people or Asian people say? What did you do? Were you listening? Can you articulate it? Because we're always the one being asked to give our opinions, and then we have to articulate it and teach you. And so it's like, I was like, I'm not talking, like, I'm like, you can go and articulate what we said. So
Wow. It's little things like that too. I mean, like this conversation it's been great for me too, because of like I'm talking to you, and there's all these things that you realize that happen every day, that are extra little bits of work, or just things
oh
that
yeah,
you think
it's a
about that.
lot of work. I had somebody
Yeah.
tell me today, we have these employee groups, like resource groups at the label and Chappell,
Yeah.
that we do together. And again, we have a Jewish group, we have an LGBTQ group, we have a women's group, we have an environmental group, we have a Black group. I'm sure there's other ones being thought of, but when you're in these groups, it can feel like heavy lifting. It can feel like a lot of heavy lifting, because you're out here trying to plan events and do this and do that, and you're not being paid to do it. And she was like, I don't think Black people or anybody else in one of these ERGs should be the ones doing the work. And it's a lot of extra work, a lot of extra hours, a lot of extra time, and we're not being paid to do the work. And it's like, it isn't just about the money. It's it's just that idea of giving extra of yourself. And you when you're in a specific place, you do feel strongly about these things and you do have opinions about them, and you want to make things right. But it is a lot of work. It's not a little bit of work,
Yeah.
um so yeah, I mean, I'm glad there are people out there saying, you know what, I want to be an ally. What does it really mean to be an ally? What can I do? um and really try to move beyond the lip service of it. So I hope, I always say I hope. I'm a very hopeful person in those things. I don't actually, despite what is going on in the world, even today with so much drama, and we're in the precipice of another war for like what reason? There's so much stuff going on that we could be dealing with, and that we need to deal with, and that happens and affects our day-to-day life. And just you add on to that, just mentally trying to survive the world as you walk through it. Like, being an artist and a creative is very, very difficult. It's a lot of mental gymnastics to be a creative and survive in this world, and create art, because you need to have a certain brain space to create art, but you need to feed yourself and maybe feed your kids. And that those things are hard. Those things are really, really hard. And it's like, even me, I have to be cognizant. It's like, I get paid a paycheck, and I'm dealing with artists all day who are not getting a paycheck sometimes. Maybe they've decided to like totally not have that second job.
Yeah.
They want to just be doing their art. And we've just gone through a pandemic where they're not able to perform, and they're not able, like, people are still creating, don't get me wrong, we had lots of creation happening. There's a lot of music creation happened during this thing, and I have to think that we're about to come into like some of the best music we will ever hear, because we had people who were so focused on creation. Now, don't get me wrong, there were also people who are like, this whole idea that during the pandemic I should have like bettered myself and made a whole house and got 10 jobs and figured out NFTs and learned to bake bread and write a song, like all this shit. Some people are like, I don't have the energy for this, I just want to go lie down. And then we got to a phase where everybody was like, oh, this is what we're doing now, so we just have to get on with it, kind of thing. So, but there was a lot of creation happening, music creation happening during this time. So I really do think that when we come out of this and people are able to go to shows and do all that kind of stuff, we're going to really see some amazing work from people. I also think people might come out of this a little more, I don't want to use the word grateful. Grateful is the wrong word, but
I like
just cognizant and thankful for life, and living life in the way that you want to live your life, and not having so many restrictions, and just maybe enjoying the simple pleasures of life. I hope. And I think that, when we all get back to like outdoor festivals in real life, like, what I mean? Like,
wow.
I would like to be back at the Forks. I would like to be back at Indigenous Day at the Forks, and having those experiences that we have as a community, as a music community, that takes us across multiple other communities, right? Where music is what ties us together, but then we have all these other communities, sub communities in there, and when we get back to those experiences, but yeah, it's hard. And mentally, I think people have been going through a tough time. A lot of artists have been going through a really tough time during this time. And I'd say, and I'm sure people would be like, yeah, give us a break, you got paid through the whole thing, which is true. So I'm not gonna act like I didn't have that security. But when you're on this side of it too, I spent a lot of time, and this is not a woe is me thing for sure, but I did spend a lot of time super worried about people who were not working, who were struggling, who were, and you then are like, you spend your whole time like not necessarily focused on your job, but with this double focus of, we represent people. Like, there are people, there are artists, there's creatives behind this music, there's creatives behind this business. It isn't just a business. These are people, the artists, people.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate that. It's been the pandemic. life is hard on its own. The pandemic is crazy on top of it, definitely. And to see, I am excited too for all the music that's going to be coming out. And I'm actually excited also for the people who haven't even started yet, because there's also going to be that second wave of they didn't maybe work during the pandemic on the music, but now that they've kind of had a chance to take all that in. Maybe they did learn how to bake. Maybe they did all these other things. Now they're like, yo, I
Oh
need to.
yeah, I was baking bread like a cray cray.
Did
I
you
was over here.
get really good?
Oh, I mean, I'm a cook. I'm a person that cooks, so I can actually cook. But I definitely was like doing those things that you would say are rainy day things, like, oh, let me just figure out how to make hardo bread.
Yeah.
The thing you would normally buy at the store. You're like, let me figure out how to make hardo bread or some stupidness like
So
that.
that was the craziest thing that you perfected in the pandemic? Just off
Probably
the top.
hardo bread. Probably
Yeah.
hardo bread. Yeah, because like who makes hardo bread? Like that's it's just crazy. You just go to the store, whether it's a Jamaican store or the African store, you buy hardo bread. You're always making hardo bread. But no, I figured it out. I was like, okay, but it's not a skill one wants to perfect, because like eating a loaf of hardo bread is not a cool idea. It's great, it tastes amazing, but I don't think anybody should be doing that too often. Like that's just nut shit.
It's
So
not good. Not a good
nah,
thing to do.
no, I don't think
Um,
it's good. I don't think it's good for anybody, but it's great. Thankfully, I have friends who will happily eat the gifts of bread and
there you go.
anything else that I'll do. So I didn't actually like have to suffer the consequence of doing that.
Like we've been talking for a bit, and I don't want to keep you much longer, but I thought this would be a great opportunity to, if you could leave us with one bit of overarching advice or like a thought or anything, like a good, just sum it up. You've hit so many interesting points of view. If you could leave us with one thing here, whether it be advice or opinion or anything,
About
or
about a specific thing?
I'm just talking about like as
Life.
black music professionals, as
Well,
people.
here's the thing that really rules my life, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it at every given time, because there's things I take on. I like to joke with people. I only have two speeds. I am so zen because I teach yoga and I practice yoga all the time,
Yeah.
and so I'm either completely zen or I'm going to kill you. I don't have any in between. So I don't take it on. Like I just can't take it on. Like there's because people really want to force you to take everything on.
Okay.
And I don't think that's good for us to take every single thing on. I'm not saying go stick your head in the sand and be oblivious to life. You can't. I am not one of those people that thinks that, oh, shut up and sing. I'm not one of those people that thinks that artists shouldn't have. Art is a weapon, right? And your art is a weapon. And I do believe that you have a responsibility as an artist to bring in where we are today and bring what is going on in the world into your art. No, not everybody is going to do that. Some people are just going to talk about shaking their ass. Some people are just going to talk about women and weed and drinks and the back of the pickup truck or whatever. And then there's some people who feel more comfortable expressing themselves in a protest way, in a social conscious way. And I'm not one of those crazy people that's like, oh, I only listen to socially conscious reggae. And like, no, I listen to Vibes Cartel. I like dancehall. I'm not at all Gaza. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not over here. I'm not over here only listening to Bob Marley, One Love. Like, that's not a thing. But I do think that even if you were listening to the most ridiculous, out of control dancehall music,
Yeah.
you would hear the struggles of poor people. The
Yeah.
common thread through that is a slice of life within a certain culture and a certain class structure. And so I urge people who are artists, who are songwriters, to make commentary on your day. But what I also say to people though is save yourself. You can easily get sucked in
Yeah.
to everything and every issue and every drama. And don't get me wrong, when those crazy trucker protester people were going on the last couple of weeks, I jumped into every live on TikTok and harassed the living hell out of them. There was one other guy. He was way more on it than me. I swear to God, every 2 seconds he just wrote BLM, 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 BLM in the trucker protest things. But I did, yes. I would spend like at least an hour a day where I'd go in and harass a bunch of truckers on their stupid lives because they were in there talking crazy shit. Like they were literally being the most racist people. This wasn't about freedom. This wasn't about the mandates. Like it was just, so many of them were just actual racist, crazy people who were looking for something to be angry about, and they just wanted to be ridiculous. Don't get me wrong. If you have your personal issues about the pandemic and a vaccine and this and that and the mandate, I may not agree with you, but you're allowed to have your opinion. You're allowed to have your opinion. What you're not allowed to do is go out there and literally be co-opting indigenous culture and burning sage and beating indigenous drums and going la 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 la, like, oh my God, right? I was just like floored at the ridiculousness of the whole thing, and I was just like, no. So I'm not always peaceful. Don't get in a fight with me. I'm not always peaceful, but I don't take it on. Yeah. I know when to drop it, and I think as a person of color, whether you're on the creative side of this business or you're on the business side of this business, you will constantly be tested, and you have to save yourself. Save yourself. You have to save a little bit of something and just go like, okay, I'm working in this organization. It'd be like you back in school days. I'm working in this organization. I'm the one person. They're going to come to me and ask me questions. I'm going to have my opinion about something. You're going to give a suggestion about Black Music Month or Black History Month or Black music in general. And then you kind of just have to let the chips fall where they may, or join forces with your Black organization in Winnipeg. And then from there, join forces with Advance, join forces, get bench strength so that you can do the fight, because the fight needs to happen, and we're in the fight, we're in the trenches, but every day you won't have the same energy. So you're going to have to find that network where it's like one day I'm fighting, next day you're fighting, and we continue to push the ball down the road. I don't even think about it as a fight anymore. It's about pushing the ball down the road and just taking space and claiming your space and taking space. It's okay to do that. It's okay to claim space. It's okay to take space. It's okay to do those kind of things, but don't do it at the expense of like your mental health or anything like that. I think don't let someone say to you, oh, if you only just sung this song this way, or if you only did this, it's like, no, just, do you, and just try to remain sane. Because you know what? Being sane in this world right now is, wow. I'm a person, and again, I have to say this very clearly. I don't struggle with anxiety and depression, and those things are very real for a lot of people I know, especially for a lot of artists. My dad was an artist, and my dad clearly struggled with certain things. But both my parents were artists, actually. My mom was a painter and my dad was a musician. And so I only know art. This is the only life I know. And it's difficult. It's definitely, this business is feast and famine in art. Art is a feast and famine business. You need time to create, and the world doesn't allow you that. So it's very hard. It's not an easy road. Like to quote our friends in dancehall, it's not an easy road, but you have to just find your place. And if you're good at something, just like keep going and share your info and your knowledge. That's why I come to things like this. I could just be off watching something random on Netflix right now, like Tinder Swindler or something. But
one too,
but I do think it is important. So if you, and the last thing I'll say this is, especially as somebody in my position, if you get to a certain place, bring some people along.
Whoa.
Bring some people along. It's easy for me to say, look, I'm the only person, and I could just be like the only person and just take that on forever. But what good is that?
Wow.
What is it? So that the species can die with me? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, bring people along. There's space for everybody. There really isn't space for everybody, because the society and structures that we function in don't actually make that real. It's not real. Especially in Canada, it really isn't real. But you got to function like it is. You got to function like there's space for everybody and make space. So if I don't make space for other people, there will be no space. And so I've tried to make space for people.
That's the best. That's actually, it's a great way to end it off. And I really do. No, it's the truth. It's solid. We don't want to take on too much. We want to make sure that we're focused also on the things that we're focused on. I appreciate that, and we can make space for each other. I love all of that. I did have one of my coworkers did ask me a question that they wanted me to ask you. They just had texted it to me. What would you say what was your inspiration to do this music career and go as far as you have in this?
I wasn't joking when I said I was born into it. Like, I legitimately was born into the music business. My dad was a musician when I was born.
Yeah.
So he used to be was mostly a live musician and kind of like cabaret type style stuff back in those days. And he used to like I don't know if he owned it or if he just managed it or whatever, but he was like a partner in a venue here in Jamaica. And so, but he was also the house band, and he also toured quite a bit, not around the region and stuff like that. And I think even into like North America, like in Florida, that kind of stuff, where there was a community, you know what I mean? And so I was in clubs too. My mom was running the front of house, and my dad was on the stage. And I'm sure if there was now times, they would have been written up as bad parents, because I was left with people that I probably shouldn't have been left with at that age. And then my dad, was always on tour. My parents divorced when I was 4 because I think my dad was just never here, and he was always on the road. And I'm not joking when I say that I legitimately don't have another thing. My parents only ask questions like, did you play the piano today? Did you paint today? There was never some sort of question about like, are you gonna be a doctor? Like, just with it. And to be frank, my parents just didn't have. The one thing I'll say about artists, there's some cliche shit about artists that unfortunately is true. And I tell people all the time, I know creatives love to get together.
Yeah.
But when creatives get together, and then they're true creatives, by true creatives, I mean, there's some creatives that are like me, because I have an art degree and I have a radio production degree, and I'm a creative person, but I also have this other side of my mind that functions in a more logical business type way. Yeah. But true creatives who literally will just make art for the sake of making art, they don't care if they make $1. When those two have kids, which are like my parents, nobody remembers to feed the kid. Like, they just didn't. It just didn't occur to them. Like, and it was like born fruit from when, like, my mom, when both me and my sister were kind of like 16 and out of the house, like we were out of the house, my mom reverted to some sort of weird freaking hippie artist shit where she like closed up her store. She used to have a storefront that was like a gallery and whatever, and she sold other things. She sold that shit, came back up to the house and just like painted all day. And I would have conversations with her and I'd be like, so how you paying the bills or whatever the case may be? And she'd be like, God will provide. And I'm like, And then, sure enough, that shit would just work out. You know what I mean? But they're really bad. They were really bad in regards to that kind of stuff. And, they couldn't help me with homework. They didn't understand math to save their lives. And they couldn't help me with homework. I certainly wasn't set up, that's why when I see artists nowadays handling their business and really being business minded, and I cannot stress this enough, if you are an artist and you do not understand the business, make it your number one priority to understand the business. Because I am dealing with people who have like recently died and their whole family's trying to navigate it, and they don't have enough money and all of this kind of stuff. Or an artist has a dry spell and they're not set up enough, and they're just not set up in a business-minded way. And people take advantage of that and they make shitty deals and all this kind of stuff, and they don't read their contracts. And it's just like, guys, I get it. Your art, it's art, but it's still a business. It's called the music business. So if you want to be like somebody like in the basement, like, just making music for the sheer enjoyment of making music, that's cool. But maybe the music business then is not for you. Like,
Yeah.
stay the fuck out of the music business because it will swallow you whole. So to answer your question, the inspiration of me being in the business, frankly, was my parents, was my dad, was watching my dad go through what he went through. And yes, I have musical skill. I play multiple instruments and I can sing. I could probably sing most people under the table, but I don't have an interest to be an artist. I don't think that's my calling. I think my calling has been to stay on the side of the business that I'm in and be of service to artists, to understand artists' brain, and to be able to like navigate in that space. I don't think my calling is to be anymore. I mean, when I was younger, I was a classical artist and I would do all this other stuff, but I don't think it's my calling necessarily.
Yeah.
And but my influence was definitely my dad, and just growing up around music and growing up around um radio. I was in radio for a while. My degree was in radio, and just loving music and audio. And obviously I come from a culture in Jamaica. We're such a musical nation, right?
Yeah.
So I think that everybody here has music coursing through their DNA. It's such a big deal, and it's so crazy. This little island has such an influence, like, on the world.
Yeah. It's, I like, back to what you were saying. It was really interesting when you first said that your parents, that was like your father, your parents was the musical, like, that was the influence that kind of got you going. It's amazing to hear you have all the musical talents and the gifts that you learn from that, but then to see when you're talking about the artist mind and how it's just about art, and then to see you succeed and go so high in the business side, it's just amazing that you could really appreciate all of that art. And then now when you're older, putting it professionally, you're like, this is what was maybe lacking, or what I wish had a little bit more focus when I was growing up. And now you take it to such a high level where, that's amazing. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
It's hard. Somebody just wrote in the thing about, I don't have enough passion to pursue music as a career.
Mm.
um and money towards it, and that's it. You have to know yourself, you know what I mean? And God bless these artists that just keep going, because this, even if you're the best artist in the world, I always say, like, if anybody who's heard me speak in Winnipeg knows this, like, um your first record or your
Yeah.
first body of work, you've probably spent your whole life getting to that point. Whether
Okay.
you're like, writing in your journal when you're 12 and da 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 da, and those form the basis of your first songs if you're a songwriter.
Yeah.
And then you have to do it again, but you have to do it in a year or two. And
Yeah.
you have to have the mindset to understand that you also have to live. I have this conversation a lot with artists. Oh no, I'm working, I have to grind, I have to do this, I have to be in the studio, I have to do this. I'm like, if you don't live, you will have nothing to write about.
Yeah.
So yeah, you gotta live, and you also got to know yourself. And I respect the person here that just wrote that about the fact that not everybody has what it takes to pursue music as a career. It's a career and it's a job, and it takes a lot of time and effort, and it's physical, and you're on the road, and you have to learn all these different skill sets, and you have to look a certain way. And yes, more and more, some of these things are starting to not be a thing,
Yeah.
where it doesn't matter how you look, it doesn't matter how you sound, like, it doesn't, like, all of those things are like varying degrees of importance now. But I still think it's a thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we were all like so woke and like, oh, look at Billie Eilish, she doesn't have to walk around in like her boobs out and this, that, and the other, and all this kind of stuff, and she sounds great and everybody still likes her, and she's like a little tomboy. And then she decided to go be the adult woman that she was, put a corset on and wear a dress on Vogue magazine, and you thought the world was coming to a freaking end because they were carrying a, why is she trying to be sexy? And it's like, oh, come on, guys. Like, let people just be, let people live their lives. Like, who cares? Who cares what they're doing? Unless they're harming people and
Yeah. Yeah.
literally saying shit like Bill Gates is putting chips in your arm. Like, unless they're really talking cray-cray, then just let them be. Just let us do
Yeah.
their thing, And now the music business is more democratic than it's ever been.
Mhm.
Everybody can put music out, which is not actually a good thing, because it means that a lot of times you can't find the good stuff because it's so cluttered with the crap.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of bad music.
Yeah.
Really bad music. And what I'm fascinated by is no one tells them. I'm like, there's no one telling you that this is awful. Like, this is just so bad. Like, wow, it's so bad. And so I'm annoyed that it's harder to find the good stuff sometimes because we're just, I don't know, inundated with the crap.
Well, it's a privilege. Creation has always been a crazy privilege, and now it's if you have a laptop, and if some I've seen people make music on their phones. If you
Oh
have,
yeah. Oh
so
yeah.
like it's so easy to do. It's just like the base level and if we're
And
talking
to be
about,
honest, like the reality of that is like it's great because before there was a barrier to entry, and now there's all these people who are super talented and we are able to hear their music because it's so democratic. Like
yeah,
I know people who've cut vocals that have gone completely viral, and the vocal from the song that went completely viral, she did singing into her laptop. Not even a
nice,
microphone, singing into her laptop. You know what
nice,
I'm saying? And this shit went viral, millions and
nice,
millions of views. And there's like superstars singing to her song. And the
nice,
original vocal on TikTok, she sang into her laptop. So
nice.
that's amazing to me. That's amazing that that can happen.
But
But it's still a business. So when you get past that point, you gotta put yourself in a position to win. And you have to understand that it takes staying power. And you have to understand that this whole idea that someone's just going to pluck you out of nothing and become something, that's none of that's real. Like that's
yeah,
not real.
yeah, I can get that. I get behind that. 100%. I said I was gonna let you go. I guess I
Are
lied.
there any other questions that we need to
Does
answer
anybody?
before?
Yeah. Does anybody else have a quick question that you wanna put in here or you want to ask? I did have a question that I forgot to ask you.
Sure.
Um, where are you hoping? If you look at where we are now, we're post pandemic. Advance is doing some great things. Where are you hoping to see Advance in say the next 5 years, and maybe Black artists and Black music in Canada in the next 5 years? Where are we
To
hoping?
be frank, it would be nice if we didn't have to exist. Um, you know what I mean? It would be nice if we didn't have to exist. If we didn't have to be there calling people out and doing all these things. It would be nice if we had gotten to equity, so we don't have to exist. But the reality of it is, what I would like to see is more people in the managerial VP and above positions of
Mhm.
both color and Black people.
Yeah.
I would like to see Black people a little more, a little to go back right to your first question, a little closer to the decision making um, power around Black music and who has the say in it and the money and this, that, and the other, because we're bringing in a ridiculous amount of money into these companies and we don't have the same influence, you know, in those situations. So I want to see more of that. Certainly, places that are devoid of people of color, I would like to see people of color and or Black people, and more specifically of the culture. Um, in these places like agencies, and I just want people to just do the work and get people in there. And I don't want to see, you know, only women being coordinators and you know Black people being relegated to the urban department. Guess what? Black people are in country. Black people are in rock. That's the other thing. I also want that definition of Black music to be wider than it is. I would like the definition of Black music to be understood that if you are a Black person and you're making music, you're making Black music. And the reality is like we need to own what we're doing because we are the originators of like rock and roll. And it gets co-opted and then we're out of the space, right? Just like how all these white Asian and like K-pop white kids are all doing Black music all day, every day, and no one's saying rat, no one's saying anything about it, right? It is what it is. It's accepted. So the reverse needs to happen too. So if you're a Black person that's in country like Mickey Guyton, or if you're in rock and roll, like especially Black rock, I feel like we need a new era of Black rock. So I
That'd be
think
dope.
all of those things, I want to see as well, because if they can co-opt our music and go off with it and do K-pop and this and that and the other, then we should be able to at least go back to what we've always traditionally actually did,
That's
and
fair.
not I don't like seeing that the blues society is all white and 90% of the lineup in a blues festival is white. What? Why?
Yeah.
Oh, how that make any sense? You know, I just want progress. I want progress, and I want progress that we can actually count. And I would like us to be making more money. I'm really annoyed that we are not making money comparative to the money that we produce in this business.
How do we fix that? How would we fix that?
Well, you know, it was interesting in the conversation we were having earlier today. One of the things somebody had suggested, I think they were American, was to have a similar situation to the UK, where the UK, once you have a certain amount of employees, you have to report what your numbers are. You have to report how many people you have in certain things, how, like women, people of color, blah blah blah, and you also have to report salaries. Because that's the other thing that needs to happen on the business side is we can't be like, I had a conversation with one of my male counterparts recently.
Yeah.
To ask him, I was like, look, I just need you to do me a solid. What do you make? Like, you got, like, give me the range. I don't need you to tell me exactly the dollar figure. Just give me the range. Tell me I'm in the neighborhood. I know I'm not. Like, I know I probably make, I'm not joking, I probably make half what he makes. Easy.
Oh, wow.
Like, you know, so add women, add color. I think I make about, and I don't know if that's the reason why. I'm just saying, I'm positive I make about half what he makes. And I was just like, just tell me what you make. Like, if you want to do a solid, if you want to be an ally to a woman right now, tell them what you make. Men, tell women what you make. White people, tell people of color what you make. Like, tell people what you charge, whether it's like at a company or this is your freelance rate or something. Because the majority of our business, let's be real, is independent. It's not at companies. The majority of the music business is at independent places. Tell people what you make. If you want to be an ally, just tell people what you make, and so that they don't go in there blind. Like, I was talking to a very well-known company. They were talking to me about a job or whatever. Yeah. And the recruiter, I always have conversations. So this is not something new. It's not. I always tell people you can always have the conversation about a job. Like, don't ever not have the conversation. I love what I do. I love where I work. Love working at Chappell. But I always have the conversation. And she quoted a number. And she's like, "Oh, we're not able to pay you $350,000." And by the way, we're talking to U.S. money. I literally almost burst out laughing. I was like, as if. I was like, but because she's American, add the Canadian aspect to this as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Because she's American, that's literally what she thought we made. I was like, what? I was like, no. Now, granted, there's nobody in Canada, so we cannot expect to make the same amount of money as Americans. There's no one here. Like, there's no one here. Like, when you live in a place like Toronto, you think people are here, but there are no people here. The population is like non-existent, right? Compared to America, compared to other places in the world, there are no people here. So I don't really expect to make what my American counterpart makes specifically. But, you know, if you want to be helpful and you come from a group of another group, then just
let them know.
Just let them know. Just give them a hand up. You don't have to give them everything. Just to give them a range, just something, you know. And, you know, women have become better at this with each other. I think women have become better at this, so that gap is closing a little bit. But we thought it was, and then we got to like the elections in America, and we were like, oh, we weren't on the same team. We thought we were on the same team. We're not on the same team. So yeah, you know. Just if you want to be an ally, if you're out there and you're like, I want to be an ally and I want to make sure people progress, then you gotta deal with the equity issue. And it comes down to titles. Somebody said to me the other day, oh, titles don't really matter. I said, when you're Black and a woman, it matters, because people see you in a certain way. And it's the same like women in the music business who've always been shoved into coordinator, assistant, and all of these kind of things. And the guys are over here being managers and senior this and director and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, if you're a coordinator or a assistant for 20 years, you're probably doing all the work.
Wow.
And and you're not getting the money. So you gotta make overt decisions. I said this earlier today as well. I was like, if you want change, you have to make overt decisions and not be upset about those overt decisions, because at the end of the day, we're not saying you're going to elevate someone that isn't qualified. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, all things being equal, it's okay sometimes to make the overt decision to hire the woman, the Indigenous person, the LGBTQ person, transgendered person, the Black person, the Asian person. It's okay. It's okay. It's not anti-white. We're not trying to be anti-white. We're just saying, in order to get to equality, we have to do equity. And that means that we got to level the playing field. Thanks for having me, by the way.
No, this has been great.
It's a much better conversation than we normally have during Black History Month, because normally I feel like our conversation is all about, why don't we have Black music on the radio and how do we fix that? And it's like, we don't. Just accept it and let's find another way. Like, I don't know what else to say.
No, I've been really happy with the conversation myself. It's refreshing. It is a different conversation than we normally have.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, I think, again, it's like, I think people expect us to have this kind of cliche conversation as Black people during Black History Month, and we don't have to do that. There's you know, there are a lot of people having conversations this month about a lot of things, and I'm sure there's something there for everybody. And this is a great conversation. I'm hoping the people that were listening or watching got something out of it, and or at least open their mind to the concept of, let me function differently in this space, whether I'm a creative or whether I'm behind the scenes, or how can I come out and help Manitoba music or Black History Manitoba or advance, like move the ball forward.
Well, it's been great. I really enjoy it. It's nice when you have a conversation and it feels like, especially a subject like this, being Black is not a political issue. You know what I mean? It's not something that you hear with all there was the talk of the people protesting against BLM and all kinds of weird things that have come up over the last little while, where I don't know how many times conversations have started about being Black, and somebody has said, well, it's something about politics, and my skin color is not a political issue. Me not wanting Black people to die at the hands of police is not a political issue.
No.
It's basic.
It's life. It's life.
Yeah, it's basic.
Straight up life. It's basic, super basic. So yeah. So I appreciate everybody who's listening and who came out. Thanks for having me, and hope to see you guys in real life in Winnipeg soon. I do love coming out that way, and I love being able to go to shows there and eat food there and shop there. I like shopping in Winnipeg, actually. I always get some of my favorite things. I bought these 2 cowhides the last time I was there. My friend Tasha Spillett, who's the author, and she's Black and Indigenous. She took me shopping, and we got a bunch of like fun stuff last time I was there.
You got the hookup.
Yeah, man. Got the hookup.
No, this has been great. Thank you so much, Vivian.
Problem.
And
thanks for having me.
We'll have you out in person as soon as we're able to. And
I know, right?
Do this again.
All right. See you guys.
On behalf of BPM and Manitoba Music and Factor, we just wanted to say thank you again, and thank you so much for participating in our first ever BPM Speaker Series.
Yay! Gotta love being the first.
That's what I'm saying. All right. Thank you
so much. Later. See you.